Welcome back to Building Africa. Now, Dariel Solutions is a South African company that focuses on creating software architectures, applications, and integrated services. Malcolm Rabson is the MD of the company, and he's in studio to unpack some of the issues and the latest trends in IT architecture and software development. Dariel, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Let's get a sense of exactly what the company is about. When did you start and how did you get involved in this particular industry?
We started the company 8 years ago, and it was created. There was a need or a gap in the market that with the advent of internet and web and new technologies, people were still building systems in the traditional mainframe ways. And we were seeing a spate of systems out in the market that, although they worked functionally, the users were complaining it's too slow, they can't log in, they can't get the information and access it as quickly as they needed to. And one of the services we started actually in the very early days was doing software audits, where we would go in and have a look at the system they'd built, and it became very apparent and very clear to us that there was an architecture that was lacking. And like any building today, the architecture in software is fundamental to the success and the ability of that system. And one can't go and build an architecture for a one-story building and then expect to have a skyscraper on top of that. You have to build the correct foundations and that for the skyscraper up front. So that was really the raison d'etre or rationale behind Dariel and the gap in the market that we saw we needed to plug.
But do you still think there's a gap between enterprise architecture solutions and the technologies that are being used?
Yes, we do, in that it's that you need to be able to know today how to take the technologies and plug them together to create this framework or this architecture that will give the optimum results or needs to satisfy business today. And I think it starts, the key thing is to really look at what is the business drivers of a company. And one has to transform those business drivers to technology or architectural needs that can underpin that. And there are trade-offs. And I think the key thing is understanding, when we always rate with business and we talk to the business people, not to IT, saying, what are the fundamental drivers that you need for your systems? Is it security? Is it scalability? What is it? And those we then inculcate on day one in this architecture and use these various technologies out there, but it's how you clip them together in order to give you the successful skeleton to build on.
Let's touch on South Africa. We know that SA, Gauteng, KZN and the Western Cape are the biggest players in terms of IT spend. What's your outlook going forward given our downturn in the economy?
So currently we still see that continuing, in that just some of the numbers we've seen is about I think 70% of the IT spend is in those 3 provinces, of which 55% of that is going towards hardware and software. What we see in the downturn of the economy is that there will be less procurement in terms of maybe upgrades of networking capacity or upgrading of products and versions. However, when it comes to software services, more and more we are seeing, and companies are realizing that software is the electricity of their business, and that in the downturn of the economy, now more than ever, they have to find new ways and new creations to generate new forms of revenue. So, and in fact, interestingly enough, Dariel started in 1999-2000 when you had the whole market crashing. And that didn't affect us because, again, companies at that stage were looking at new ways to generate revenue.
So government is probably one of the biggest players when it comes to IT spend. Do you do a lot of work with them because they are the biggest, they've got the deepest pockets, if I can quote it that?
To be honest, at the moment we haven't, for a number of reasons. Firstly, we started out, really, the business started focused in the commercial area, you know, the banking sectors, financial sectors, insurance and that. And we've just had so much work, we actually haven't really even looked further than that. Having said that, we have looked at some of the government's initiatives, and they're pushing very much this open source promise. And we're concerned about that, in that it's not as free or as cheap as it looks. Is that, yes, the actual licensing of the software you might not pay for, but you will incur costs in other ways that the level of skills you need to really do their own research now and own training, you're going to have to pay more for. So yes, you might be saving on licensing, but your skills, you'll be paying more per skill because of the ability they need to be able to solve problems themselves. There's less of a user base or, I guess, training programs that you can go and plug into. You've got to solve a lot of the stuff yourself.
I would like to touch on that issue of skills, because you know that with the skills shortage, companies are constantly poaching from each other, pushing up the cost when it comes to hiring one person. Do you think that the skills poaching is still a headache for the industry in terms of cutting down on the people you're spending, and then at the same time